Hello and welcome to the Wonkette Weekend Live Chat. I'm Robin Panacchia, and with me, as always, is the lovely and talented Stephen Robinson. How you doing today, Stephen?
I'm well, Robin, and yourself?
I am also well. I would be better if all you would like, share, and subscribe.
Very well done,
Yeah, did
Robin.
it smoothly this week. I'm very proud of myself.
We are progressing further into October or the month without a House Speaker because Republicans are incapable of governing or compromise or anything that would allow
Yeah,
you to. So, in the past week, the week before they ditched Steve Scalise, and now this week Jim Jordan was making a play for it, who is terrible for many reasons we've gone into, and I won't bore everyone with. But he had multiple votes where he did worse than Scalise, and his whole participation was evidence that Republicans don't believe in election results because Scalise won the internal result
yeah,
and then his people said we will never vote for, and one of them being Marjorie Taylor Greene will never vote. But that's how it works. Like Nancy Pelosi didn't get everyone in her conference votes. Like people voted and it's okay, then we'll go on now.
yeah,
So yeah, it's not impressive. It's classic supervillain stuff. Like that's how like the Legion of Doom loses because they fight amongst themselves and they can't like
yeah.
teamwork. This is like basic Saturday morning cartoon stuff, which is just like you work if you can work with other people and you prioritize others beyond yourself, you do better than the bad guys. And I think that's just what we're seeing play out here. Jordan lost. Jordan was doing a lot of strong arm tactics that were offending people, like stuff that was, clearly death threats and whatever. But and it was not him, but it was his people, and he was sort of like not. It was sort of echoes of Trump saying to Kevin McCarthy of like, my people are very passionate. He was sort of saying the same thing of like, well, maybe don't vote
Yeah,
against
yeah,
me, and this will stop. And I always find it fascinating because as someone had alluded to the fantasy Republicans on West Wing, and it just reminded me though the one thing they did have correct was that for the longest time, you did get threats. It wasn't physical, but you would get people saying, "We'll ruin your career. We'll do this." I mean, it's very naive to think that politics wasn't that way, and often, especially, I mean, I've worked in corporate America. It's not politics, but the same way of where they love using loaded terminology that's slightly violent, like things like a war room. We will eliminate you. Well, certain things that are kind of set, but it's understood that it's not literally going to be violence. And here it's just clear on mob type tactics. So it's not just like we'll rate in a clear grass for you, as one guy said on the West Wing, which wasn't literally that he was going to wait, to shoot him. It was more, I'm going to wait in a clear grass for you and ruin your career. And
and
now
the
it's no
thing is,
longer a
yeah,
metaphor.
there are essentially two parties now that like also hate each other. Like you've got like the like visibly wacky ones, I guess would be like the, best way to explain it, who were the ones who like, did want Jim Jordan, did want Scalise. And, then you have the other ones who are like, you know, just sort of your usual boring, like, the banality of evil Republicans. Like,
Yeah. And
like
all
they're
they
also terrible, but
but all they have in common is they hate Democrats, and it's something that, I mean, I've seen it within our own in our own chat cave at Wonkette, and I've seen it, other folks of like Bill Kristol's said something in a sort of like, well, maybe five brave Republicans will make Jeffrey a speaker, or there'll be some sort of bipartisan, and even sort of the, as you were saying, the boring or kind of sort of
yeah.
almost normal Republicans were saying, under no circumstances will we work with Democrats. You know, they present it as they might dislike Jim Jordan or Steve Scalise or whatever side they are on, but they see it as we need to get our act together to stop Democrats from taking control. The worst thing ever would be a Democratic speaker because, and then they present stuff that's just sort of not true. So you and I have had different, opinions on the whole kind of vote blue, no matter that kind of scare tactics that sometimes
Mhm.
Democrats will do. But those scare tactics are often rooted in reality. Like, okay, well, you might not like this Democrat running, but if the Republican runs, they're going to outlaw abortion. They're going to do this horrible stuff. It's true. I mean, they are running on that. They're actually doing it. Whereas Republicans have created this idea of like, and I think since Trump, because the idea is like to justify my supporting this horrible person, these people must be worse. These people must
Oh
be
yeah,
more
well, they have to
dangerous.
make a huge deal out of how like evil Democrats are, like or various Democrats are, because otherwise, like unless they're like these people are literally Satan, it's a little bit hard to
Yeah,
justify anything.
they don't fundamentally believe Democrats legitimately should govern, and I think it's very important to understand that.
They don't necessarily believe in governing to
Oh yeah.
begin with.
Well, govern in a sense of wield power. I think Democrats define governing as like doing stuff with it beyond hurting your enemies and abusing people. Like that's what they want. They want to shut down government. They want to cause pain to other people. They have no other, maybe build a wall, but they have no other. It's all exercising of power and so forth. But those folks, it's still like from your Marjorie Taylor Greene to your more polite Republicans, they still see themselves though as fellow Americans, fellow members of
Yeah,
the country club, and um, you know, uh, Democrats are not. They're like what the rhetoric used to be of Americans might disagree, but we're going to come together against the commies or the Nazis or whatever. That's what Democrats are now. I think Democrats are continually sort of surprised when Republicans make it very clear that they don't trust them and detest them. So now when there's no speaker, they voted down giving Beverly Leslie, that guy, more a temporary speaker, powers, because it was going to be obvious he was going to be a puppet for Jim Jordan. So now it's like, okay, well, we need to get behind someone. So if you do math, as Nancy Pelosi has advised them to do, if you get math, that means you need to pick one person and get behind that person. But instead, as of this morning, there are like 9 people, and that's
yeah.
nine times, as Principal Rooney would say. So we've got 9 people. We've got Tom Emmer, who's the majority whip, Byron Donalds, who's a first term House rep, who's awful, who has
Definitely a piece of work there.
and he is a sort of a he has sort of a lot of backing from the Jordan people. I'll get back to him later because he's interesting. But Austin Scott, Jack Bergman, Kevin Hearn, Mike Johnson, Mark Green, and Roger Williams of Texas. So some of these people are too boring to even care about. Some of these people are
Yeah.
dangerous or seditionists. But the Emma, the low hanging, sort of the lowest bar of him is that supported, he certified Biden's election win, and he is actively not wanting to support either Trump or Trump-like candidates. So Trump's people are already going after him as of this weekend. On Steve Bannon's show, Carrie Lake's campaign advisor was described him as Nancy Pelosi in a suit. I just want to clarify, Nancy Pelosi wears suits a
Yeah,
lot.
she wears them regularly. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen her wear something other than like that's usually what she wears. Are
Maybe there's
suits.
like, they're defining it. It's a sort of a gendered slur, that kind of insult that fell apart. But
Yeah.
they have she has nothing. So the idea is just sort of any sort of candidate who has experience, who is not a bomb thrower, might as well be a Democrat, which is just absurd because they don't have anything else in common. And he's got, he it's highly unlikely he can prevail with the whole MAGA wing against him. Byron Donalds, who is in no way qualified to be speaker based on, like sick, like if like
Experience, general sanity.
let's pretend it's a job and you have to do well. I was writing about this for tomorrow, and it's sort of like it's this idea of it being a Green Lantern ring or a, like somehow if I have the Thanos gauntlet through my force of will, I can make stuff happen. So it's not just like they keep saying we need a speaker who's going to do all these things that it's not that Kevin McCarthy didn't want to do them. So if it
Mhm.
was just like he doesn't want to do it, it was more just I physically can't. We don't have the power and ability to do it. Um, and it's a sort of they still think they can just go and rob the tombs of history's greatest dictators and create their own Cobra Emperor who will beat you. Like, well, no, GI Joe's going to keep winning because they're
Yeah.
in the name of the show. And so I think maybe you're being unfair to Cobra Commander because the deck is stacked against him. But they insist, you know, McCarthy is like the scapegoat, and they're gonna get their new emperor who's going to like really, really deliver, and it's just not gonna happen. So just gonna keep turning. They're just gonna keep feeding on themselves because this other person's gonna be doomed to failure. Um, at it. But Donald's is terrible. He's already like many Republicans because he's black. He is running on the fact that he'll be the first black speaker. So identity politics are
I was
good.
just gonna
You're
say they
probably
hate
right.
identity politics, except for when it works for them, and then they get all mad like, "Hey, why aren't you doing the identity politics for us in a way that benefits us?"
Yeah. Well, and they do the stuff that and I've said, like, yeah, that's one of the problems with making ice color gender or racial essentialism,
Mm.
because to me, it's not. Yes, if it's like, oh, I want to support all black people, why aren't you going to support the first black speaker? So for me, well, no, because here is how he's bad to all other people,
Yeah.
and it's more about, I want to support people who are going to like actually not
And
be
this is the
evil.
thing, that wasn't even like, I not to get off track, but that was not the original intent of like actual identity politics to begin with. Basically, all it was is okay, so a woman is perhaps more likely to know about issues that affect women than men are and like pay attention to those issues. A black person is likely to be more aware of issues that affect black people.
Oh yeah,
That's literally it, like, general awareness and, voting based on things that benefit you, which is what everyone does.
yeah, but that framing Republicans quickly flip on. So, you know, it especially when Democrats would not have themselves the best representation. So it's often a bunch of white guys or even white women. So then if it's just like the Democrat so you have Joe Biden, let's say Joe Biden versus Nikki Haley, if Trump
Mhm.
keels over, then on women's issues Biden might not have the personal experience, but on
He
the
is better.
policies
He's
the
bringing more to the table.
yeah, so it becomes a sense of, and I agree with you that where that was coming from was correct and right, and that is what diversity can do. It's just sort of like many things. Republicans are very good at twisting it into something terrible. We can get back to more speaker stuff or later. I'm already kind of bored with it and this whole mess, but the
I know,
idea.
this is the problem, like, they're so boring. Like, they're actually just so fucking boring, that it does become difficult to pay attention to, like.
Yeah, because the identity politics was an interesting segue to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You've written about her yesterday, Saturday, about her unhinged, like 1984 wrong think type stuff. Uh, can you fill us in on her
Let
latest?
me actually bring it up so I can, oh, uh, sorry, I'm like, I can't even find it right now. Um, but basically, if you guys didn't see, the article yesterday, or it's been in the news. Sarah Huckabee Sanders decided on Thursday, like she's like, you know what? There's just like not, there's really nothing for me to be paying attention to in the world right now. I'm gonna take today and do a whole press conference with not my bajillion dollar Louis Vuitton uh s- what what is it called? Like speaker stand, whatever. I can't even think of it.
Mhm.
Podium, her Louis Vuitton podium. That's what I've decided it is anyway. Um, and just like get up there and be like, hey, I'm going to do the very serious business of banning all of these words that probably no one is actually using from, ban people in government from using them. And specifically, it was like words that are meant to be inclusive and, non binary people who can give birth. It's not like that, it's the weirdest fucking thing. Like, I think that she thinks that it's like actual like cis men or trans women that are, suggesting these words, but it's not. It's trans men who can in fact get pregnant and non-binary people who can in fact get pregnant. So like words like terms like pregnant people, which is what I choose to use also because it does not kill anyone to be inclusive.
Mhm.
And it, like, let me see, the list was um that you can't use are pregnant people, chest feeding, body fed, human milk, birthing person, laboring person, menstruating person, birth giver, or women with an X or Y instead of an A, which ironically is a thing that was like, very popular among TERFs back in the day. The women with a Y thing. I mean, other feminists as well, but like, um, it was popularly used, like, as far as like people more in the mainstream go, by the Michigan Women's Festival, which had like a women born women policy.
Mhm.
um and I just, I really really do think that this, like so many other Republican or just like conservative culture war issues, is essentially about like they don't feel special enough. They need to feel more special. Everything is about, acknowledging them, making them feel important. If you include people, if you include other people in discussions in anything regarding anything at all, then they're not special. And that upsets them. And that really like, and the
Mhm.
more that I think about it, it's practically every single culture war issue that they have. Like, you tell them, they hear like Black Lives Matter, they're like, does that mean my life doesn't matter? Why can't it be all lives matter? Or uh why won't these um store clerks wish me a Merry Christmas? Why don't they understand that my religion is the only one that matters? Why can't I force children to, do my religion in school? And that is just
Yeah, and this is sort of not necessarily a very new movement of being inclusive or even polite.
no.
Even in the South, as I recall, companies that used to have like wife nights for partners or
Yeah.
whatever back in the days where the implication was this was because all them it was only men who were partners, only men who were executives, and when you had an event for the spouses, there were wives. That's what you called
Yeah.
it. And then even if you just had one woman wants to break into that group, even and again, parts of like even in Texas, and a lot of places they would say, okay, well, yeah, we'll just call it spouse night because
Yeah.
that's out of niceness because obviously Robin's husband, for example, is not a wife, so we'll call it spouse night. What's the harm? And that used to be because that's what human beings do.
Yeah. You just
And
adjust and you move the fuck on.
even if it's just a small group of people, because there are Democrats who, especially as they're influenced by the never Trumpers types and the center rights,
Mhm.
Because if you read the Bulwark, you read the others, they are always about, oh, the wokeism
I
is
do
the
not read the
problem.
Bulwark.
Yes, you in a general sense, in a inclusive sense of the word you, if you read that, they will often say that that is the problem for Democrats because of like one, but again, even if it's just one person, there was never sort of the idea that there has to be this critical mass of, husbands for there to suddenly be for wife night to supposedly become spouse night, and that just suck it up. So I should just suck it up and be called, I'm going to wife night, even
Yeah.
though, so, uh, but that's sort of, I mean,
Well, because they'd also never expect men to do that to begin with.
yes.
Like, that's, crossing
You,
a line there for some of them.
and you had said that this is the implications is coming from clueless academics or cis men or just clueless academics in general. What's interesting is that that is something that is often promoted um, in the media, and I would say quote unquote liberal media. I think there was actually one show where, again, it was Chloe Feynman, who's on Saturday Night Live, is playing a very cliched uh, parody of woke liberal. And, again, to the point where parody is great. I support parody, but the idea becomes where the idea is that we're anyone who is thinking of inclusiveness or trying to be better is a joke. And sort of the kind of common sense mentality is sort of that center right view of the world. And anyone who's, especially sort of, anyone who uses these academic terms about I'm present for this, so that sort of stuff is a big fraud, and we're going to laugh at them. And this is often coming from quote unquote liberals. But anyway,
Mhm.
in the one show, there's the a man who is of Hispanic origin. She uses the term Latinx, and he's like, I don't even know what that is. And it comes a point where it's like this term is only something that comes from clueless white liberals. Now you could disagree with that term, but my understanding is that it is not just something that came from clueless white liberals that's
Yeah.
projected upon you. David Cross did this about where he said, I refuse to use African American because it's a term that white liberals came up with, out of white guilt, which is fundamentally untrue. Like, I think it steers back to many black thinkers, including Jesse Jackson. So to me, it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to use the term African American, fine,
Mhm.
but don't
Yeah.
but don't pretend that it's like, oh, well, I'm just fighting the man who's coming up with clueless terms, so I'm going to keep using black
Well, because
instead of.
that's like to be. I mean, that's really like the only way they can make their desire for non-inclusion seem not dorky. If they turn it into we're the ones fighting against the man, which they are in fact not. Like they are the man. They are the establishment. Like that's who they are. Everyone else is fighting them.
Yeah, and that had been such an ongoing, and a lot of that terminology, a lot of its stuff, because of its stemming from a lot of times from academia or from activism, and people don't like activists in mainstream society, and it's very easy for Republicans to twist that and get the support of you know the white liberals who like to say, or well, I'm free speech uber Alice or whatever, like why should I. And so what this though
Except they're
is
not.
but this though is just sort of, you know um Sanders sort of going, and I think you touch upon this in the article. So you go from what she had originally said in a sort of a response to the State of Union was something that was all lies, but on a superficial aspect of it's from the perspective of people forcing their opinions on me, and I have to live a certain way, and we're persecuted and put down upon. And that you can people like that. They like that traction. They can get behind it. Whereas then now she's just sort of, okay, well, I'm literally telling you what words to use, which of course was always the sort of the case. It was never it, but it is sort of something I would hope that Democrats are going to hammer on a bit more, um, and say like this is all kind of really BS. Like inclusive language is not eraser of women or something. I don't. It's such a weird
It's
thing.
so bizarre. Like it's like this just constant idea that if you bring someone, if you include other people, that you don't exist anymore. Like who came up with that? Like middle schoolers? Like is that, it's very childish. Like it's very elementary school even. Like, oh, I'm somebody if I can exclude other people. If I can't exclude other people, then I am nobody. That means I'm nobody. And, that's sort of an immature view for adults, like to think like, oh, that takes something away from me. But we're also talking about the people who, with same-sex marriage, were like, well, that will make my marriage less special. Like, Jesus, keep your eye on your own paper. Like, no, people aren't bothering you. The thing I did think was that I really did enjoy, and I know I said this at the time, like when the State of the Union happened, was that she was, in that speech, she was like, they make us do their rituals. Like, what are our rituals? Like, I mean, am I like, oh, you have to like do witchcraft and whatnot? I know I just had this on the table and I had to bust it out, but like that's not happening. No one has asked them to do any rituals. No one has asked them to salute any flag. They're the only ones who care if other people salute a flag or not. They're the only ones who care if everyone believes in their religion. Like no one else is that bothered. Like I don't have a religion. I don't care if other people have it as long as they stay out of my face. Like
Yeah,
not hard.
it's tough. It is sort of a bad human instinct of it. You can't just run your own race, as the great Marlo Thomas said. It's sort of the idea that I need someone has to be below me, and sort of everything's about
Yeah.
how I see the world. And
Oh, I so thought you were going to quote something from Free to Be You and Me.
no.
It's, it's all right to cry, Stephen.
Yeah, no, it isn't. No, I am immune to tears. It's okay to cry. It's just like it will accomplish nothing. So do whatever you wish. That is one ritual that won't work on me. Uh,
Sorry. Look, I love Rosie Greer and his defiance of gender roles in general. Like, good for him. Needlepoint is a jam.
no, that's whatever entertains you works. So yeah, I mean, these guys are very adamant about feeling like if I have to live in a world that is kind or considerate to others, I can accept it. So do we?
I kind of like honestly, I have this personal theory that one of the things you're always mad about is, oh, why are all the artists liberals? And I think that a part of that is because like if you're an artist or you're, um a musician or you're just like very very good at something, you have self-esteem. You like believe that you are special for reasons other than Donald Trump telling you you are the real Americans, you are the greatest, you are wonderful beautiful people, and you're all super attractive. Like that is what they do. That is what he does. He love bombs these people. Anyone who's successful with them love bombs them. Tells
Mhm.
them, you're the real Americans. Other people don't count. You're very special and beautiful. Um sorry. And and just very, lovely charming people. Like they don't, if you are actually good at something, you don't have that like hole in you.
Yeah. Well, also, if liberals do hate themselves, it's they don't necessarily believe that others are responsible for their lack of self-esteem. They seem
Yeah.
to look inward and want to, self-improvement's important, which then gets turned into parody of the idea of someone really wanting, the idea of the white liberal who admits I don't know everything. So that becomes the parody that folks are doing.
It's
This idea.
weird to like think that you know everything.
It's like I am wrong. I
Unless you're me,
don't.
in which case I know everything and I'm right about everything, obviously.
Well, yeah. Well, so the idea from the center right perspective, or the perspective, is sort of that um the regular person just treats this black person or queer person or anyone who's not outside of their normal frame of reference no different than they would treat themselves. They do everything and that's how you live, and that's normal. And liberals fall over themselves trying to not offend or do the right thing. And sure, there's some potential for interesting conflict there, but to me, that's being rooted in a sense of compassion.
Yeah.
Not that I'm othering you. It's just sort of, or that I don't. What they revert on is like, why are you treating this black person like they are from France? Whereas, like, if you have a French person here, you're like, okay, what are the rules? It's like a certain way. So different cultures are different, and why don't you respect those things? And I think that's always been the sort of the challenge, sort of the idea that our culture, if you're black or even if you're queer, your
Mhm.
culture has no. We don't have any obligation to respect it, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, but yeah, I mean, I think so-called liberals have gone over well and beyond to sort of glorify the other side or try to find the human element in the other side. I think what's been tough about Trump himself is that he has no redeemable qualities. They can't try to find a way to make him. It's interesting. I was talking about this with someone just on a creative standpoint when they were talking about how the MAGA, like March of the Green, is no different from a Republican from like 30 or 40 years ago. And
Mhm.
I get their argument how it extends, but I do think in a weird way, what is a clear sort of part of danger of the schism can be seen in two 1980s TV shows. So one, Family Ties. So the idea of your Reaganite there, Alex P. Keaton, aside from being capable of humility and shame, and at the end of the episode, and Ben Shapiro resented that because Ben Shapiro would have been sort of the kind of the day's Alex P. Keaton, sort of the smarmy, I am better than you, but I am incapable of shame or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm a faux intellectual, but not a true intellectual or whatever. Um, but later there was Married with Children, where you had someone like Al Bundy, who was from the sort of Archie Bunker era
Mhm.
sort of style of conservative male, masculine. I'm anti-feminist. I don't like women. I don't like stuff. So that's typical kind of today MAGA
They actually,
person.
had the first MGTOW group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no
No
man.
man.
And but they're foes, they're sort of key antagonists. His key antagonist was arguably another Republican, like that other branch. So Stephen Marcy, the neighbors weren't liberals. There are early episodes where Marcy
Yeah.
likes Bella Abzug and she likes feminist groups, but pretty clear she defines herself as a Republican in the sense of I love
Yeah.
money, I don't like poor people or
Wasn't she
whatever.
like more like didn't she get more conservative towards the end as I recall, like kind of?
Yeah, I mean, other than her feminine, but it was interesting. Her feminism at a certain point was no different than say Nikki Haley's, where
Yeah.
that type of feminism, like I have the power and you are just, how dare you say these things about me, like what Nikki Haley said with when she got in a fight with Don Lemon and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, the sort of clear liberal feminism that Marcy had that didn't last very long was when she was like liked Bella Abzug or something,
Yeah.
or didn't support Al Bundy having a gun. But that vanished soon, and soon it was very clearly they were the upper class snobs, had the Mercedes, the banks, and whatever, and looked down at the MAGA people, Al and Peg,
Although I do
which
feel
was
like,
just a battle.
Ted McGinley is, I think a MAGA person in real life,
Oh,
maybe.
really?
I think he is.
Probably. Who knows?
But he also on the show also seems more to me like a MAGA type,
Yeah, I mean, he's easily
possibly.
he is easily like he's legitimately a
Yeah.
friend. He's a
He's in
legitimately a
a
friend
lot
of
of weird Christian movies.
all.
My sister and I watch
um,
them because they're funny, okay?
there is
Like it's always
apparently
like him and um uh oh my god, what's his face? The bad Baldwin, whichever the bad Baldwin is. Like the one who's not hot
Stephen.
and also is a Republican.
I believe you're referring to Stephen Baldwin.
Okay then. I believe I will take your word on that.
Stephen is the bad one, and Billy is overtly liberal, and
Yeah.
Alec is Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
It's just how you
Okay, I
differentiate
thought there
it.
were I was thinking there were more
Um,
of them. I don't know.
there's apparently
I was thinking there were like 15. I don't know.
one of the Hallmark Christmas ones is coming out. I guess is that this woman with the typical woman in these films because she's a career-minded person and too busy to do stuff wishes there was no Christmas,
Oh, fun.
so there's no Christmas. So suddenly it's all black and white, and she has to spend the film like getting people like getting a good Christmas memory, and that turns the color back on, which is obviously a ripoff of Pleasantville. And the description, the actual description talks about this combination of Pleasantville and It's a Wonderful Life is a creative spin on the holiday. No, it's not creative. You just took two
Yeah.
different things
It's
and
like
smushed them together.
it is patently derivative. I use the word derivative in a sentence not as a joke about people calling things derivative, and I would like to congratulate myself on being like super fancy.
Um, well, yeah, I mean, there's the sense of Christmas and Christianity, because the idea is that it is Christians want to believe that this is, you know, that holiday. So this desire that human beings might have to celebrate the end of the year, the day starting to get longer again, that sort of equinox, that whole seasonal celebration could only happen if you believe this whole thing about the carpenter being born and dying. And if you don't believe in that, then you can't celebrate. You can't have any fun at the end of the year. You can't like. There's no, and so it's just so weird. It's like if you're not Christian, then you are inherently Scrooge like in your home, bitter and not spending time with anyone, which is actually not true. And a lot of people who are very Christian are actually pretty petty and terrible. No one wants to be around them on the holidays. So,
I
uh,
don't really know them other than I did mention this week waiting tables for like worst crowd ever to wait tables for. I'm sorry, after church crowd. They're all like, here's your fake money tip that is actually a tract about Jesus.
oh, really? They gave you
Yeah.
chat. I
Oh
I
yeah.
heard I heard that would happen. People would give you tracks, but I didn't
Yeah,
know.
it's like you open it
Legit.
up and they're like, "Surprise! Disappointed? Don't be. You could actually just like have Jesus, and that's so much better than the $20 that you thought this was. Except you didn't because it was shiny, and no one like it was very obviously a track to begin with. Like I'm gonna play like what kind of people play pranks on their servers? But yeah,
Um,
that is very petty to me.
Scrooge did change.
Yeah.
Scrooge doesn't get sort of credit for changing, nor did the Grinch, because people still say Grinch and Scrooge as slurs, even though they ended their lives apparently positively. So the lesson here is never change.
Yes.
The world will always. Um, I can never find the film that did this, or the comedy sketch or whatever. But there was one comedy sketch where the ghosts come back the next year because Scrooge is spending too much money and being too nice, and they try to get him to a happy medium so that he doesn't like die bankrupt and having
Wait,
people take advantage of him. But
wait,
whereas he,
what?
yes, it happened. I just can't find it. I think it's like a comedy sketch or something. But
Oh, it's like a whole movie. Jesus. Um,
I don't think it's a whole movie. This is
it's true.
uh
It is. I've seen it.
well, that is what people think of as
My
Christmas. The
favorite.
idea of
Sorry.
the celebration of it. If you one thing that's I find very important in Dickens' A Christmas Carol is that Scrooge does right by charity. He gives a lot to charity on Christmas morning, and then he, gives the big turkey to Bob Cratchit in preparation to give him a raise, taking care of his employer. So he's doing all of his actual Christian charity before he goes and have fun with his equally wealthy nephew, because that's how some people, especially Republicans, celebrate Christmas. So it's sort of like, screw the poor. Yes, my employees might die because they can't afford
Yeah.
health insurance, but I celebrate Christmas because I've decorated my beautiful mansion and all this sort of stuff, and I'm going to have this grand, celebration with my family and whatever. Maybe they're even having a good time, but it's like, okay, well, for the holiday to sort of mean something, you need to actually think about other people less fortunate than you. That's
Yeah.
what's important. Um, and then egg their homes. I think that's what the very rich might do.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
Did you know Paris Hilton was still alive? This is a random thought.
Yes, obviously.
I just happened
I
to
love
see
her mom, by the way. Her mom is the best, and I am so extremely team Kathy Hilton. I can't even tell you.
Kathy
Um,
Hilton is still alive too. Yes.
she is hilarious. Yeah, she just had a kid. I don't know why we're discussing this, but yeah, she just had a kid. Um,
Paris Hilton is the
and
mother.
pardon?
Paris Hilton had a kid? Really?
Yeah, she had a kid, and I don't think that her aunt Kyle was invited to like visit the kid because they're all pissed off at her because she took Lisa Rinna's side. Well, not entirely, but she was shitty to Kathy. They are on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Sorry. I have strong opinions on this.
Wait, how is Paris Hilton a housewife?
Okay, no, she's not a housewife. So her mom, Kathy Hilton, was a friend of this like past couple seasons, and she's actually hilarious. Like genuinely a hilarious person. I don't even like I was very prepared to dislike her, but she's hilarious. And like actually nice. However, her aunt Kyle, has been on the show since the beginning, and her other aunt was also Kim Richards. Kyle and Kim Richards was on in the beginning, and I'm sure you probably know a lot about Kim Richards because she was in a lot of movie. She was like a child actor in the 70s and 80s, I guess. Kyle was in Halloween as well. I don't know why I'm explaining this.
Uh,
We love
well,
Kim. We love Kathy. Kyle can suck it. Is
okay.
like just you in case anyone was wondering why. So why did you ask me if I knew Paris Hilton
I
was still
I
alive?
I expect I did this to tee you up. This had all been rehearsed beforehand, and that was like on the talk shows where they tee up the discussion. So yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the speaker to wind this up for the day because I have a sick kid and sick wife that I need to go attend to. But
I have a sick myself. No.
um this whole speaker thing, I don't know what's going to happen. It's like another tedious week. And presumably they will land on someone, and that person will be terrible. Um Byron Donald, yeah,
Is he your
he's
favorite of the bunch right now?
well, he has a lot of the Jim Jordan support.
Yeah.
He's full on MAGA. Look, I look, a black guy can marry a conservative white woman if he wants to, but she's literally a mom for liberty, I think, and also her work is in regarding um, killing public education, which, if you dig deep, a lot of the charter stuff and a lot of that stuff has stemmed has been about conservative white people not wanting their kids to go to school with black people. But that is fine. That is what he wants to wind up in. It is one of those things where you see the photo of them and it really makes you realize what a brilliant piece of work Get Out was, because it's just like it looks like he looked like he sort of, you want to look for where there's the
See,
scar,
now we're on the right holiday.
and
Well,
he's like maybe he's using terminology that's from a different period of like whatever. So, but yes, he's a disturbing fellow, and who knows, he could win. We don't. Everything is sort of very like because I don't know who Republicans can get around right
I
now.
really don't know. I can't think of who could possibly even like unite them. Like I really cannot think of who that would be. I am at a loss. That
Yeah,
is a good point.
that is certainly true. Oh man. So what do you have going on for tomorrow, Robin?
Um, Honestly, I have no idea right now. Like I'm gonna take a nap and then I'll figure it out. How about you?
I will do some speaker follies, sum up, and
Yay, so I don't have to do that. Not that it's my
and Mark Robinson, who's another proud black man, no relation. I just always want to clarify. In North Carolina, he is currently lieutenant governor. Crazy racist, bigot, homophobe. He is clobbering all comers in the primary for governor, Republican primary for governor, and he will could stand a very good chance of becoming the next governor. He is not at all qualified. And if you look at his history, he's a guy who got radicalized by listening to Rush Limbaugh, who posts on just a lot of right wing screeds and paranoid conspiracy theories and anti Semitic garbage and racist and sexist garbage and transphobic garbage online. Like he is sort of, but that's became the Republican electorate. So it's very hard to beat someone who represents what the party is right now, um, which is scary because it's kind of, if you live in a country where 40% of the nation, I think that's what they got so upset about Hillary Clinton and deplorables, because it was like, well, that's a lot of people. Let's pretend that that's not the problem. Let's pretend everyone's great, because that would be very scary. So, um, but he is potentially going to be governor. I wish I had better news for folks. There's Virginia, which Republicans want to make. Uh, if they flip the Senate, which is the only thing that Democrats control, they will pass 15-week abortion ban and all this sort of stuff. That's terrible. The one advantage is Democrats are very motivated to vote in this election, though unfortunately, the prioritization amongst all voters is the economy and inflation over abortion rights and so forth. And Democrats aren't doing very well, especially Biden, in the view of the public on the economy and inflation. And I know people um, like to speak on a macro level about the economy being great, but the biggest challenge is that um, housing costs and food costs are going up, and those are just things that that's kind of what they define as the economy for them.
Yeah, pretty
So
much. Like I mean, yeah, because most people don't, aren't like doing investing or whatever. I'm not. I don't know what any of that is about. Um, so basically, it's like, can I afford the things that I can usually afford? Is like literally all the economy is to most people. And if you can't, then the economy is bad for you. If you can, the economy is good for you. Like if you can, buy your regular stuff plus some extra nice stuff, it's really good. Like
mhm.
that is really the only gauge anyone has for whether or not it's doing well. And I also think it's always problematic when you tell people like, oh, okay, the economy is, sure, it's not going well for you, but just trust that
um,
it's good.
yeah, well, I keep getting told like the
It is.
rate uh, like wages has been keeping in pace with the rate of inflation. I just don't see any evidence of that
Mhm.
amongst working people. Like I don't. There's no Starbucks barista who's making 5 or 6% more than they were in 2019. Is that at all true, Robin? Like, I don't feel
Um,
like normal people are
I
not
mean,
making.
actually, hold on. There are, because guess what the Starbucks workers did?
Oh,
They
they union.
unionized. So,
Yes, but beyond the non-union people, I just feel like there's not a lot of people who are making
yeah.
or
On the
keeping up.
bright side, however, not at the, really the bright side, but if you look at polls, like there is huge support for the unions right now.
Mhm.
Like more so than there has been in, I'm going to say, like decades. They did a poll on, who people supported, the UAW or the car companies, and it was like overwhelmingly the union, which is awesome. Like people, I think that the more that this happens, the more people do get like, hey, this whole like letting the job creators have as much money as they want, no matter how badly they screw people, is not actually working out for anyone. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I also read that the Trump tax cut, he had some sort of, there was some sort of thing in it where the middle class would definitely start getting screwed at a certain date. Because at the time it was sort of like, okay, well, we're really not screwing the middle class. It seems like we're giving a lot of money to rich people, but then it's like it kicks in at a certain date that the middle class will start getting screwed. I think
Yeah.
that's starting to come up soon. But yes, I mean, the advice I've been seeing is to ignore all polls, and actually everyone loves Biden. Uh, and I think that's concerning, the sort of magical thinking, because it's sort of,
Mhm.
I don't know how that would work, but um,
It works for Republicans. I think to some degree it does work for them. I think as a rule, like most of us on the left are too cynical for that to work. Like it or maybe we're just too smart. I think we're too smart. Like like I've seen people try and do it, and you can tell even they don't really like believe that like the secreting or like magical thinking is gonna like help in, because mostly they're just complaining about the fact that it doesn't. like like they're like, why won't this work for us as well? Um, actually, and I did mention this in our chat. I'm, okay, so I do think that RFK is more of a threat to Trump. However, his like he released his first campaign ad recently, and I saw it on the TV, and it did make me a little bit nervous, and I'm going to tell you why. And it's because he did the thing where he showed both Republicans and Democrats saying bad things about each other. Although the Republicans were obviously saying far crazier things. Like Democrats were largely just using the word Republicans in sentences.
mhm.
And then was like, "Are you tired of this? I'm also tired of this. I'm also tired of politicians being owned by corporations." And the reason that that makes me nervous is because yes, people really hate that so much, and people, and especially like if you're not someone who is super tuned into politics, that's the kind of thing that you say that you're going to say like, oh, this is what bothers me. And it obviously the corporate stuff bothers me, but I've I think about it a little bit more deeply than that these days. But um I do worry that he's gonna I hope that he won't peel off too many voters from the left, but the possibility is there, and it's making me nervous. So I do think we definitely need to uh,
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the
cut that
Biden.
off at the head, like,
I don't know which Biden 2020 voters he might win over. I think it's mostly Trump people, but who knows? It's
or
hard to
just like
say.
non-voters, like or people who like go back and forth or like consider themselves independents, because there are a lot of people who like will just vote for him because they hate the two-party system.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if there are people who, as long as they didn't vote for Biden in 2020, then that's fine. So there are people who didn't vote in 2020
Hmm.
or who voted for Trump. That doesn't necessarily hurt Biden or keep Biden
Hmm.
from getting to 270. But, I think, and his message is a very middle class message in a way,
Hmm.
or upper middle class. Like, aren't you tired of people fighting? I mean, there's some, and then
Yeah.
even the corporate stuff of being owned speaks to a certain segment of the left that's, I would say, more slightly more educated in a certain way, but that there are other people who just, the biggest fear is someone speaking directly to working class people,
Yeah.
particularly Black people and Latino voters who Biden has been slipping, his approval has been dropped, because they're folks who are just like, their view of politics literally is, I can't pay the gasoline, and the stuff of like, hey, look, here's Kamala Harris cooking with a celebrity. That type
Yeah.
of stuff doesn't you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
interest them. It's like they
You know,
don't
honestly,
get
right
that
now I'm
sort of
very worried about Michigan, in general, because a lot of what helped Biden there was the Muslim vote,
yeah.
and it's not going well.
Well, the argument becomes that they will not, and but a lot of Democrats won't. They loved saying that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar or Minnesota and others had no impact on the election. And it was somewhat frustrating because it was sort of like in 2016, the left was blamed for supporting Stein or not voting. And then 2018, you got a lot of these liberals who ran as Democrats and got elected. And then really, despite not being, big
Mhm.
Biden supporters in the primary, did the responsible thing and campaigned hard for him.
Yeah.
Omar went door to door in Minnesota. I think Tlaib campaigned hard for him. Same with AOC. So yes, I do think it will matter somewhat if they're not at those levels campaigning. But I guess at the same time, you have to say it would probably be worse for Muslims from the
Oh,
other.
no, it would be, and I actually do think that, it is definitely time to start talking in general about the way that, um, Trump is very much responsible for the fact that there is no longer a two-state solution. Um, because he basically like gave his approval to settlers moving into the West Bank. That was Palestinian territory, and now they don't have places to live anymore. Like they took over their houses again, and that was I'm trying to be as delicate with this as possible, but that was a very bad thing. If you are not familiar with you know what's been going on with that for a long time, I highly recommend the documentary Louis Theroux and the Ultra Zionists. So there's like a lot of background information there, but the whole international community was like, no, this is not okay. And then Donald Trump was like, that is totally okay. And then way more people moved in. And now it's like things are too mixed up to feasibly have a two-state solution. So there's basically no logical end point to this. So that's not good. And I do think that like he needs to be very much publicly blamed for that. Or because it will be helpful, frankly, because
Absolutely.
for Democrats to do that.
All
It is a
righty.
good point. Feel free to steal it. All right, so we'll see you guys next week, and have a lovely week before Halloween week. That's the
Yes.
thing.
Take care. I'll talk to you. See
Bye.
you soon. Bye bye.